What's up, everybody? Welcome into the Phillip Jordan Show. I am Phillip Jordan from Last Word on College Football on 96.9 The Legend in Dothan, Alabama, where I'm the in-studio host and producer of the Wolves football. That national championship game was not a great one on Monday night, but we will be talking about it here on today's show. Bill Bender from the Sporting News will be joining me as he does or has the last couple of years. We will talk about it. Just the environment around the game. What were Bill's expectations going into that game? And we'll just talk about Stetson Bennett, Brock Bowers, what makes this Georgia team so great, and what's the future for TCU, and much, much more with Bill Bender from the Sporting News. And as I've been telling you guys since the start of December, when NFL playoffs got around, we'll be bringing some NFL writers to preview and talk about the NFL playoffs. And joining me to do that will be Matt Barbato from Fantasy Pros and Betting Pros. So first will be me and Bill Bender, and then you'll hear me and Matt preview Super Wildcard Weekend. Remember, you check out the Phillip Jordan Show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. If you're on Apple Podcasts, please follow, rate, and review. Leave a review, and I will read it on a future edition of the show. You can also check out the show over on the Phillip Jordan Show YouTube channel. Please hit the subscribe button, hit the bell for all notifications. Please leave a comment on the video, and I'll read it on a future edition of the show. You can check out all my written work over at Last Word on College Football. You can follow me on social media at pjordansec. You can always email me at sports.philipjordan@gmail.com. Everybody joining me on the show right now, and as I told you guys on the top of the show, we do this. I've been fortunate to have Bill Bender on the last. This now be 7 years on the first show after the national championship game. And Bill, I appreciate the time. Of course, Sporting News, national college football writer. I always appreciate when you come on the show and talk college football.
Yeah, no problem, Phillip. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I was thinking on Monday night this game was going on. I said, where am I going to go with this game with Bill on Wednesday when we get together to talk about the national championship game between Georgia and TCU? Of course, Georgia won 65-7. But first, just how was the week? How was the build up? Going to game, of course, being there at SoFi Stadium. I mean, that is on TV. That stadium just looks beautiful. Just what was the build up? For you there covering the game. Before the game started.
I mean, it's always blessed to have those opportunities. I never take it for granted to go to a national championship game, and it was a good game. It wasn't a good game. It was a good experience, I would say. Stadium was good. It was rainy, which is interesting. I mean, I learned real quick that, this is kind of an outdoor stadium. I had just assumed it was retractable and everything would be inside, but I don't think LA was ready for that rain.
Yeah, it looks that way on TV, but I guess, and was it true that it looked like it was only raining on the TCU side?
My wife was telling me a lot of TCU fans apparently slipped and fell and all that. I walked across the concourse before the game to meet a friend. My college roommate happened to be there, and it was slippery, like on the concrete. So again, it was one of those things. But all in all, always a rabid atmosphere at those type games, and people get riled up, and it was a lot of fun.
So going into the game, of course, as we know, Georgia won 65-7. But what was your expectations going into the game?
I thought Georgia would win. I thought Georgia would cover. I didn't think they'd win by 58. I thought TCU and the build-up, they were enjoying the moment of being out there. There's no question, but they had taken a cue from Sonny Dykes, who had they weren't supposed to be there, but they weren't apologizing for being there, and they shouldn't now, even though they lost. I mean, they earned that shot. Georgia, meanwhile, is very business, very, I think the second life that they got, so to speak, from the near loss experience of Ohio State certainly showed. They played with a lot of focus, a lot of violence, and Kirby Smart, he's really taken off, not just as a recruiter and those kind of things, but his in-game coaching and the calls that they were making and the quarterback play of Stetson Bennett, it was pretty phenomenal.
With TCU, and it's not a criticism. I mean, like you said, they should be, happy they made as far as they did. No one expected that coming to the year. But did they feel like a team to you there, being at the game, that they were kind of just happy to be there? And, of course, Georgia, this is the second year in a row. Like you said, they were all business.
Yeah, I mean, it was a really good game plan by Georgia. It was just no. I mean, I feel there's only so much I can say, right?
Yeah, I know.
So it's like yeah, they won every phase of the game. I think one of the things Kirby said after was, on a couple of those third downs, I thought the game was over at Bowers crossing route catch on, I think it was like 3rd and 14, and that made it 31-7 at halftime. And I was like, okay, it's probably safe to write now. TCU, one of the things Sonny Dykes said after that caught me, and I kind of stuck with me, was they had a false start on the first play. So they were nervous. They were overrunning assignments. They, were missing assignments and overrunning plays, and it just showed. I mean, that big game experience showed for Georgia.
Yeah, there was one throw by Max Duggan there. It was one of the interceptions he threw, and I'm drawing a blank off the top of my head which receiver it was, but he clearly overthrew him, and it was a bad interception. But it feels like normally that's a throw Duggan would have hit the guy on the mark, and that's a big game, but he overthrows it. It seemed like, obviously, like you said, jitters, and it's just the moment's big, and you're just doing things you probably didn't do, like with the false start.
The Georgia defense also had heard all weekend that they got torched by LSU, torched by Ohio State, and DeMoss Johnson was one. I remember just seeing his face. He was like, yeah. He goes, yeah, we're getting tired of it. And he was trying to find the words, and I was like, oh, that's just that competitive anger. And, Bullard obviously had a really good game. Christopher Smith with the strip on the one play. I can't remember if he recovered it or stripped it, but they had that play as well. And anytime you have 3 first-half turnovers and you're trying to match scores with Georgia, that makes anytime you return the ball over 3 times on Georgia, you're probably going to lose.
Yeah, I know. Like you said, going into it, because Marvin Harrison Jr., all the receivers for Ohio State had such a big performance. And you look now at the stat sheet for TCU, the rest receiver Quentin Johnson only had 1 catch for 3 yards. I mean, I know Darius Davis had 6 catches for 101. He had that big play set at Max Duggan touchdown when it was 10-7. But yeah, that obviously was a team, and just a team that was looking to make a statement in the championship game. Obviously, what happened last 2 games, like you said, LSU and Ohio State, when it comes to the pass defense, just when you look at this Georgia team doing this 2 years in a row, how was Kirby able to do it? Because you always talk about, and you've even heard Nick Saban talk about this in the past with his teams were unable to repeat, being complacent, being entitled. This team hasn't done that. How have you seen Kirby Smart be able to coach his team and be able to do this back-to-back years?
Well, I mean, they still have a ton of talent. They have more talent than most of the teams on their schedule. But, I mean, to replace 15 NFL draft picks and still win it is remarkable in some ways. Mm-hmm. LSU had that loaded roster and wasn't able to do that. Alabama's had trouble They have not repeated as the national champion in the college football playoff era. So when David Pollack said they've taken hold of college football and Saban was sitting right beside him, it's not like he was lying. He was telling the truth. Right now, Georgia is king. Now, Saban is the all-time king, and where does that fall? It creates a heck of a rivalry going into next year. But, yeah, I mean, it's definitely one of those things to watch. It's going to spice up because all of these conversations, to me, definitely begin with Alabama and Georgia.
Yeah, obviously I was watching from TV, and I saw when David Pollack said that. I was kind of waiting to see if it was Nick Saban going to say anything back. He didn't, but he had that look on his face like, wow. I mean, it wasn't awkward, but still, at the same time, you saw Nick Saban with that response. And before I kind of ask you a couple more questions about Georgia, just for TCU, obviously great season, the Cinderella season with Sonny Dykes, year one. Of course, he lose Max Duggan. He's going to the NFL. Do you see this as a team, especially when we get to the 12-team playoff, that could be in the playoffs, maybe not on a yearly basis, but on a semi-yearly basis, be a team that has staying power? This wasn't just a one-hit wonder.
For sure. I mean, with Sonny Dykes and the way that they've worked the transfer portal, the Texas and Oklahoma leading the Big 12, I mean, there's a lot of reasons to believe that TCU can have some staying power. So I think they're going to be a team to contend with, a team to perhaps, wreck with. Very much enjoy how they play. Very much enjoyed being around Sonny Dykes for a weekend. He's a very candid talker. For us reporters, he's great because you ask him a question, you're getting an answer. You might be getting too much of an answer for your transcribing purposes. So, yeah, I think opportunity exists with Oklahoma and Texas leaving the conference for them to really kick it into gear with what they've got going on there. Really impressive program despite Monday's result.
And, kind of back on Georgia and Stetson Bennett. I mean, storybook career, just everybody knows the story. Anybody listening to this knows the story. Just seeing him in his performance, 6 touchdowns overall, 4 in the air, 2 on the ground, 304 passing yards. I mean, he was on his game the entire time. Just what are your takeaways now from Stetson Bennett now that his college football career is over?
I mean, he's been phenomenal. A lot's going to get made of his age, and people have opinions on that, and their opinions are already made up. So it's useless for me to kind of sway people either way. But I mean, the facts are, a brilliant game on the biggest stage. Played great against ranked teams this year. He is a 2-time national champion, and the only ones in my lifetime are A.J. McCarron, Tommy Frazier, and Matt Leinart. And none of those guys really had an unbelievable NFL career, but I don't think it matters. I mean, Frazier and McCarron, obviously college legends, and then Leinart still contributing to the college game as an announcer. So, yeah, I mean, he'll have a career opportunity somewhere, and his legacy at Georgia is pretty firm. I mean, winning back-to-back national titles at a program that hadn't won one since 1980 is a pretty significant deal.
Yeah, the Georgia stuff has completely changed over the last 2 years. It was always, they can't win the big one, and now they're expected to win the big one. It was just a complete change, and that's Kirby and then Stetson Bennett leading the charge there at quarterback, and then Brock Bowers. I mean, it's just amazing watching him play. Obviously, this is a wide receiver and tight end's body, and he had a big game in this one. 7 receptions, 152 yards, 1 touchdown. You talked about one of his catches earlier in our conversation. Seeing him up close and personal, what are your big takeaways, especially when you see what you see on TV versus how he looks in person?
He's a big dude. I mean, hard to cover, wide, runs great routes. Not as big as Washington, but very big. And I think it's going to be hard to stop him at the next level. So, I mean, this is what Georgia's built. When you have a player that can run those routes at that size, at that speed, with that athleticism, it's really good. And Ladd McConkey was healthy, too. I mean, that was another thing that stood out. He was banged up at the end of the year, but once he made that leaping catch on the first drive, you kind of knew, well, he must be good. So, yeah, I think that was very important for Stetson Bennett to have one of his favorite targets making some huge catches.
Yeah, for next year, when you look at this Georgia team, I mean, yeah, of course they're going to lose players. I mean, you got a team that's talented. I mean, but they got great players coming up, and Brock Bowers will be back next year. And really, outside Stetson Bennett, that's what they're losing. But you look at all the quarterbacks. Carson Beck was one of them there with them. But what are your thoughts on Georgia going to next year? Because you look at their schedule, I mean, it's a very favorable schedule. I mean, you kind of feel like they should be here again next year.
They probably will. I mean, they'll probably be 10-0 at the very least. Schedule set up for success. Got some really good opportunities for them to win. I pointed the stat out that if you go all the way back to 2020, okay, they lost to Florida and Kyle Trask. Since that game, they've won 33 of 34, and they'll probably be 10-0. That would have been 43 out of 44 games at that point, and playing Tennessee on the road. So that could be a huge game. I mean, you look at their schedule, there's not a huge non-conference game. There's plenty of opportunity to get their quarterback, whoever that is, to settle in. And, Kirby is going to guard against entitlement and complacency. He said as much. So that's the big challenge for UGA.
And of course, as the season ends, we look ahead to next year. We already can't wait for the next season to get here. We want to skip through spring, the media days, and we just want to get to August where the games will start all over again. Obviously, Alabama, expecting them to be good, Michigan, Ohio State. But who are some other teams you think next year that really showed you something this year that could make that jump, perhaps make a TCU-like jump and be a team to look out for next season?
I mean, Washington is going to be good in the Pac-12. They're going to challenge USC. They got Michael Penix back. I think Penn State's feeling good about where they're at. And if you think Drew Allar is going to be the man, maybe they could supplant Michigan and Ohio State in what's going to be a very fun Big Ten. But it still starts with that top four. I mean, Alabama and Georgia and Michigan and Ohio State. And I don't know that Jim Harbaugh is going to go to the NFL. I know that has become a question, and a very good question, given how the regular season ended and, or how the playoff run ended. But I think he's staying. I think it's not Harbaugh's interest in the NFL. It's whether or not one of these NFL teams actually hires him.
Yeah, do you think this is going to be kind of like a yearly thing with him where he flirts with the NFL after the season each year?
It can't be, because it'll impact recruiting if it is. I mean, that's the thing. That's why it's so surprising this year. I don't blame him. I mean, especially with news of the potential violations committed and how absurd those seem in the NIL era, that maybe he just gets fed up with it, or maybe he already is fed up with it. There's no question on the field what he's done the last 2 years has been remarkable. I mean, back-to-back Big Ten championships, beat Ohio State twice. They haven't done that since 99-2000. All-Americans, has the right quarterback. And of those top 5 teams, J.J. McCarthy is the highest-ranked the only returning starting quarterback that any of those teams has.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting with them. And they just, this off season. I believe I asked you this question last year after the national championship game. But for you, looking into the off season, because college football season, just because the games stop doesn't mean the conversation stops. It's a year round sport now. What are going to be some of the big off season storylines you'll be looking towards?
We wrote one of those at Sporting News. Whether it's Caleb Williams, going for a second Heisman, or Deion Sanders at Colorado, Ohio State, Michigan, like I said, Georgia, Alabama, like I said. There's not a great week 1 game outside of TCU, Colorado. So, it's going to be fun. Where does Notre Dame go in Marcus Freeman's second season? Does Tennessee keep the momentum going? There's all kinds of things to talk about. Now, all of the conversations will start with Georgia and Alabama, but see where they finish. Yeah,
absolutely. It's going to be interesting. We got more transfer portal stuff be there and everything else in college football, spring practice. So it does not end. It just keeps going, even though the season is over. And Bill, I appreciate you coming on the show as always to recap the national championship game as we've done the last couple of years having you on the show. But if the listeners want to check you out online, where can they find you and all the work you're doing?
Yeah, I'm at Bill Bender 92 at Sporting News. We've got, wrapping up. I mean, I'm finishing up a couple game type stories and less wrap up type stuff and look ahead type stuff, and then we'll take a little break, which I would think I deserve after this season. So I'll take catch my breath a little bit and then get after it for 2023. Can't wait.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think everybody's looking forward to a little bit of that break of the season we had college football. But as always, Bill, I appreciate the time, and I look forward to talking to you sometime down the road. All right, everybody, as I told you on the top, and really as I've been telling you guys all month of December, that when the NFL playoffs come around, we will be talking about them. And joining me to preview Super Wildcard Weekend, they're still going with that 3 years into this expanded playoff thing. But Matt Barbato, you can check him out over at the Fantasy Pros and Betting Pros. He's here to preview these playoff games with us. He's also a New York Jets fan, so we may have a Jets question toward the end of our conversation. But Matt, it's always good to talk to you, and I'm looking forward to breaking down and previewing these games.
Yeah, Phillip, thanks for having me. Great to be back with you. I don't know if this wild card weekend's really going to live up to that super billing the NFL likes to give it, but you know what? It's football. There will be games on. Keeps us busy during the weekend, so I'm looking forward to it.
That's it, me too, as well. I kind of wish I get why they want the Monday game, but I actually would rather have the 3 games Saturday and 3 games Sunday.
Right. Yeah, load it up.
Yeah, because I need something to do early on Saturday. There's nothing going on. I guess I'll have to watch some college basketball. And I'm going to say this, too. I understood why they called it Super Wildcard Weekend the first year of this. Mm-hmm. It's Wildcard Weekend. Let's drop the Super.
Yeah. Like, there's got to be, like, that threshold where it's like, okay, we can't really call this Super anymore, especially because, and we'll get into this, there might be some unsuper games on this slate that will not be that compelling. So we'll see. But, yeah, I think maybe after like year 5 they'll drop it and just call it.
I'll take anything after suffering through that national championship game on Monday night.
I don't think a single game will be worse than that. So we've got that going for us.
That would be a record NFL if that happened.
58 points, yeah.
Yeah, if you get beat 65-7 this weekend, it's going to be tough. So before we jump into this, what was your preseason Super Bowl pick? Mine was Bills versus Buccaneers, which could still happen. I don't think it will, but it could happen. What was your preseason Super Bowl pick?
I was Bills 49ers. I thought Trey Lance, again, this was, a lot has changed, but I thought Trey Lance was going to take the next step in that 49ers offense. I thought he was going to add that mobile dimension that Jimmy Garoppolo just clearly didn't have. That defense has proven to be rock solid, and that might be understating it, but I was pretty high on the San Francisco 49ers. And then the Bills just, even though the AFC is by far the more competitive conference, the Bills just always felt to me like the team above, just slightly better in every area that mattered. But as the season's transpired, I don't know. I don't know if I believe in them as much as I did in the preseason. I kind of thought they were the shoe-in Super Bowl winner. I would have said Bills over 49ers in the Super Bowl. And while I still may make that my postseason pick, I'm not as confident in it anymore.
I'm with you. I'm the same way. I thought maybe coming to the year their defense would be better. Maybe they try to run the ball a little bit more, but they seem kind of like what they are. And Josh
Right.
Allen gets a little loose with the ball, and I'm kind of with you on that. I'm kind of not as confident. I'm still feel like they can do it, but I just don't feel as confident as I did coming into the season.
Right.
Especially you saw them beat the Rams like they did on the opening night. I was like, wow, they're dominating. They're playing really well against the defending champs, and we saw what the Rams season turned out to be, which was not good. So the first game actually was the Bills we're going to jump at, because the way we're going to do this, everybody, we're not going in the schedule that they're playing. We're just going to go AFC, NFC. At the 2-7 matchup. I'm still getting used to saying that, Matt, with these NFL playoffs. The Buffalo Bills, who are 13-3 this year, are playing the 9-8 Miami Dolphins, who I wouldn't say they backed into the playoffs, but they kind of limp into the playoffs. Tua will not be playing. He's ruled out with concussion. He has not got out of the concussion protocol, so it will be Skylar Thompson once again at quarterback. So I really feel like this is one of the Bills have won 7 in a row. Buffalo 7-1 at home. They played really well. Josh Allen's played well against the Dolphins, averaging 352 yards a game. He's got 7 total touchdowns. It just feels like, this is slam dunk Buffalo Bills without Tua playing in this game.
It's funny. I was looking at the spreads before this, and I was like, Buffalo jumped up to -13. I didn't even know the Tua news. I figured the line moved because he wasn't playing, but I didn't know it was official. So that's really interesting. I don't see how Miami is able to keep up with this Bills offense. Mike McDaniel. People are saying there's speculation he could get fired after this year, or maybe if they didn't make the playoffs. I think he's a really good head coach. I think he's designed a really nice offense that's really revitalized Tua's career. I know we've talked about it before. I was still a believer in Tua, and I want to say you had more doubts on it, if I remember correctly. But I kept going to bat for Tua the last couple of years, and it finally paid off this season. But yeah, with Skylar Thompson, I watched that Jets game, unfortunately, last week, and that kid just – he's a third-string rookie. It's just hard. It's hard to expect anything out of him in this game. There's a chance that maybe Miami can move the ball on the ground, but Buffalo ranks 3rd in the NFL in rush defense DVOA. So I just don't see how Skylar Thompson is going to pull off a miracle and win this game. And it kind of works out for Buffalo. It's unfortunate they didn't get the 1 seed, but they might just get a de facto bye week here.
Yeah, it just feels like, and look, Skylar Thompson, when he's playing, I think he's solid. He's not the most horrible quarterback. He's not inept at the position. But he's like you said. You need somebody that can get the ball down the field to Waddle and Tyreek Hill, and just is not the guy. And looking at this too, I kind of just wonder the future of Tua is with the concussions, and moving forward after this year and after this season is done for them. I wonder what's his future, because the Dolphins have to look at it like we're good when he's on the field, but and obviously perhaps he looks like he had a concussion in the second half of the game with the Packers when he threw 3 interceptions. Maybe that had something to do with those, because he was throwing it right to the Packers defenders in that game. There wasn't really a Dolphin receiver around when he was making those passes. I just kind of got to wonder, will the Dolphins look, we like Tua, but we got to make a decision. There's a certain 45-year-old quarterback that's a free agent that may get linked back to Miami. I don't know. I think this is going to be an interesting offseason for the Miami Dolphins with what they do with Tua and really what Tua does next, because I think he's got some decisions to make.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's such a shame because he's finally kind of proven himself and and again, people were way too quick to write off Tua, I think. But he's finally proven himself, and now he's dealing with these just awful concussion issues to the point where, yeah, you don't even know if he's going to continue his career. Because it's just the fact that he's not playing in the postseason after he's had, 2-3 weeks off now is pretty telling as to, how serious this situation is for him. So, yeah, and that's the thing. The Dolphins have a win now roster with kind of a really strong, high-powered receiving core and a defense that I think needs a lot of help in their secondary. But they're in prime position, and now they don't have a first-round pick because they were tampering with Brady. But yeah, they could easily be that team that makes the playoffs and then fails to make it the year before and maybe falls back to earth. I could see that happening in Miami.
Yes, it'll be interesting going forward. And like I said, we both have the Bills in this one. I think this was a pretty easy one to kick things off here.
Yeah.
Going with Buffalo on that one. The next AFC game, the 3-6 matchup, was just to be on Sunday Night Football. Cincinnati, last I looked, is a 7.5. You may have an updated look on that one. But again, another quarterback that now this is not official, but just recording this on Wednesday evening, all signs are pointing to highly unlikely that Lamar Jackson plays in this one. It's kind of the same thing. The Bengals are playing really well right now, 8-game winning streak. They're only giving up 19.8 points per game during that stretch. Joe Burrow is playing great. Jamar Chase, the defense is playing well. I think the Ravens have a really good defense, and maybe they can keep them in it for a while. They have the number 10 ranked defense in the NFL this year, but without Lamar Jackson, I think it would still be an uphill battle with him. But without him, it's kind of the same thing as the Bills game. It seems like this is no win in NFL is easy, but this is kind of closest you're going to get to an easy win of playoffs. I just don't think you would feel like the Ravens aren't going to be able to score, kind of like the Dolphins against the Bills.
Right, and they might be going to Anthony Brown again because I don't think, from what I read earlier this afternoon, Huntley didn't even throw during the open media portion of practice. So they could be going in with another third stringer. I think Anthony Brown's a rookie too. I think he's a rookie. Or he's pretty young player at the very least. And Cincinnati's defense is I don't know if it's an elite unit, but it's very, very solid. It's good enough to contain this offense even with Huntley or maybe even Lamar Jackson if he had played. But yeah, I don't think Jackson plays, and if Huntley doesn't go, then it's really, really hard to see Baltimore pulling this upset, which is a shame because I thought this could have been one of the better matchups of Wildcard weekend, and we've kind of gotten robbed of it twice because last week was supposed to be for the AFC North, and that didn't pan out into anything either. So yeah, unfortunately, it's like I wish I could find a way for Baltimore to win this game. It's going to have to be a defensive masterpiece where they force Burrow into 2 or 3 mistakes at least, and they can move the ball on the ground. That is Baltimore's calling card, is their ground game, but against a Bengals defense that's very, very solid against the run. Not elite, but very solid. When you have no threat under center, I think since he's just going to load the box and dare, whether it's Anthony Brown or Tyler Huntley, and dare Demarcus Robinson and who even else plays on the outside for that team. I just think they're going to dare that Ravens passing game to beat them. And when they do drop back to pass, they'll just double team Mark Andrews and go, okay, Demarcus Robinson, okay, Sammy Watkins, I think, is on that team now. I think I saw him last week. Like that, yeah. But that's really sad. Like usually I can rattle off 2 or 3 receivers on an NFL team. This Ravens team just doesn't have it. So I think the Bengals win in a, kind of an ugly, maybe like 23-6 kind of game, 23-10. It's not going to be pretty to watch.
Yeah, I know last week's game was 27-16, and kind of trying to follow that along on red zone. It didn't really feel like it was that close. It really wasn't. The Bengals really were never in doubt in that one. I'm kind of weak. I feel like it's going to probably be a lot like it was last week, if not worse.
Yeah.
Now, the other AFC matchup, we have
a good game.
Quarterback. Yes. A good game, hopefully. This will be Saturday on NBC. The LA Chargers, 10-7, will be at the 9-8 Jacksonville Jaguars, division champion Jacksonville Jaguars. Last I saw when I was doing my prep on Wednesday morning, the Chargers are a 1.5-point favorite. The over-under is 47.5. The only matchup in the first round between teams that have two 4,000-yard passers. And Matt, I just want to say this about Jacksonville. It's amazing what happens when you have a competent head coach.
That is for darn sure. Yeah, it's amazing. It's been quite a turnaround. And it really only happened in the last month or 6 weeks. The Jaguars they didn't start the season out that well. They had they had that big win over the Chargers, I remember, in like week 3, and you're like, oh, okay, this team's interesting. Then they kind of puttered out, and then they just started surging towards the end of the year. Granted, it helps that you play in the AFC South, which is just, I think Georgia could have won that division this year with how terrible it is. But yeah, I mean, Doug Peterson is once again getting the most out of a star quarterback prospect. Lawrence looks really good, but I will say they were a strip sack, fumble recovery touchdown. If that doesn't happen, they don't probably make it to the playoffs. So I mean, they're a great story, but they were about to lose to Josh Dobbs at home with a playoff spot on the line. So I'm not totally sold on this team just yet.
Yeah, and it kind of feels like, and really for both of them, but both of these teams, this is the first time in the playoffs because obviously the Chargers did not make it last year. When Brandon Staley decided not to go for the tie, and I'm really against the tie, but if you're a fan of Chargers, like go for a tie, you would have made the playoffs last year, but you didn't. So this is their first time at this as well. And you talking about Trevor Lawrence? I wanted to see his stats from last year. He was a 60% completion percentage, 3,641 yards, 12 touchdowns, 17 interceptions. This season, 66%. Well, that is huge for quarterbacks. A lot of quarterbacks can do that, go up on their percentage of that high. The only one I can remember is Josh Allen from a year to year, how he improved at that. Over 4,000 yards, 25 touchdowns, interception. Of course, having Travis Etienne in the backfield has helped this year. And you're right. They were very close to losing to a third-string quarterback this past week. But on the other side, with Chargers, we don't know what with Mike Williams. The thing with the Chargers, I'll say this: if I'm picking the teams to winner with a coach, I'm going with the Jaguars. I trust Doug Peterson a whole lot more than Brandon Staley.
That was malpractice last week. The Chargers had nothing to play for, literally nothing. They could not. Once Baltimore lost in the earlier set of games, they had nowhere to move. It was just like the Giants, and they sat all their guys. What is Brandon Staley doing? Trotting out Herbert, who dealt with broken ribs early this year, and then probably the two most injury-prone receivers in the league, and Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. And then, of course, Williams gets carted off the field with a back injury. It's like, what? You're right. I would probably pick the Chargers in this game to sort of tease that, and I can explain why. But oh my God, I do not trust Brandon Staley at all. He's reckless.
Yeah. I feel like at some point they're going to make a decision there and go with a different head coach, someone more experienced that just can make better decisions, because it just seems like sometimes he is just holding this team back, the head coach. And they are talented. They're one of the more talented. I mean, you've got a potential great quarterback in Justin Herbert. I mean, he's been phenomenal what we've seen so far. So I just wonder if this goes sideways, or maybe next year it doesn't go well for them as well, where they start looking and say, hey, Brandon Staley did a good job getting us to this point, but we need somebody else to take us to that next level.
Yeah, I think Sean Payton would be a great choice there, but yeah, I don't know. Now that he makes the playoffs, I don't know if he's going to be. It's kind of harsh to fire a guy after they make the playoffs, but that whole coaching staff, I can't stand Joe Lombardi, the play caller, either. He's absolutely brutal and just so predictable, and just doesn't know how to use Austin Eckler in creative ways. It's bad, but they have so much talent that despite the coaching, they're here right now.
Mm-hmm. So who are we going with in this one?
I'm going with the Chargers, and the reason why is I just think the LA defense, say what you want about Staley, but the LA defense is playing really good football right now. I like where that unit's headed. They're finally starting to get healthy. Bosa's back. And I think they can take away Jacksonville's biggest strength offensively, which is throwing the ball. The Jaguars, they rank sixth in passing DVOA, which sort of measures a team's productivity and adjusts it based on the quality of competition they played. Well, the Chargers, they rank 10th in pass defense DVOA. So the Chargers are kind of that type of team that they, and I don't know if Staley was the like architect of this, but the whole idea of invite teams to run the ball, play two deep safeties, and just don't get beat deep and force teams to sort of drive the ball on you down the field. And that's why the Chargers rank horribly against the run. They're 29th in DVOA in that category. But they do really defend the pass well, and they can get after the quarterback with Khalil Mack and Bosa. So I just think they're going to be able to shut down, maybe not shut down, but limit Trevor Lawrence. And I think he's going to face similar struggles to what he saw in that Titans game. So, Staley will probably go for 2 or go for 4th down on his own 4-yard line and screw it all up. But I will take the Chargers and pray.
Yeah, I'm going to go as well. I think this is going to be a learning experience for Jacksonville because while, like I said, both teams are new to this. They had, it's been a while for both teams being a playoff. Yeah. I just feel like Jacksonville, though, is a younger team in this because the Chargers have at least played in some big regular season matchups, like the games against the Chiefs, within their division. And in past years, maybe, against the Broncos or not Broncos, but same against the Chiefs mainly. Yeah. They've done well against them and some other really good teams in the NFL. So I think they're more prepared for this of the two young teams. I'm with you. I'm going to go with the Chargers on that one just because I feel like this will be a good learning experience for the Jaguar teams. It should be if they do win, if they do lose, whatever happens, there's going to be a lot of positives, obviously, make the playoffs going to next season. They're going to be a team I think a lot of people are going to love because of what they did now.
Definitely.
So let's jump into the NFC. Matchup I don't know. It's kind of interesting. I kind of wish another team was sitting there at the 49ers if they wouldn't have choked on Sunday night, but it is what it is. I've moved on, everybody. I've moved on from the Packers not making the playoffs. I'm okay. No need to email me and check on me. I'm fine. But the Seahawks, who would expect it? The Seattle Seahawks, you trade away Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson always acted like the Seahawks held him back. They were better this year. Geno Smith, really good year for him. They're playing the Brock Purdy-led 49ers. This will be 3:30 Saturday on Fox Central Time. At 49ers, they're a 10-point favorite, 42.5 over/under. You talked early on that the 49ers were your preseason Super Bowl NFC pick. They played really well under Brock Purdy. He doesn't turn the ball over. And I just got to say, Kyle Shanahan is just good with any quarterback. I don't think it matters who his quarterback is. If he's competent between the ears, he can make it work. I feel like going in this one, it's a great year for Seattle. Tremendous job getting to the playoffs, what they've done with Geno Smith and all that. But I kind of just feel like they're not going to have a lot of success offensively. And I feel like the 49ers probably win this one by a couple, maybe by double digits, 10 points, 10 to 14 points.
Yeah, I agree. I think they win pretty handily. I don't know. It's a tremendous overachieving story for Seattle, but they kind of fell apart down the stretch. I mean, they needed to beat the Jets, who totally vomited on themselves, and then they needed to beat the Rams, who, if not for a really soft roughing the punter call, they probably lose that game and they're not even here. It's probably the Lions in this spot, which, man, that would have been a much better game. But yeah, I don't trust the Seahawks defense at all. 21st in overall DVOA, but 25th against the run. So I don't think Purdy's going to be asked to do a whole lot in this game. I think you're going to see a lot of designed runs for Deebo Samuel. I think Christian McCaffrey's going to run wild. And I think it's going to force Geno Smith to sort of try and play hero ball. And he's got the weapons to do it in DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, but the 49ers defense is just too much of a lockdown unit. I feel like the 49ers will get up big early. Geno will make a couple of mistakes to compound it. And, unfortunately, this is the first game of the Super Wildcard weekend, and I think it's going to be a total blowout.
Yeah, and then it doesn't help. I think there's rain in the forecast. So that kind of does shift things even more to the 49ers for their style of play versus Seattle. When you're more of an aired out team, it's harder. A slick football.
Right.
Mistakes happen, and then you're a running team like the 49ers.
Yeah, and Seattle can run. Kenneth Walker's a good player, but they're just running into a brick wall that is the Niners D. So
yeah, so it will still be better than Monday night, though. So that's the positive.
Yes, it won't be 65-7. It may be 64-7.
Matt, it'll be one of those weekends whenever a game goes sideways. I will think this could be Monday night. This could be Monday night. So I will try to stay positive when the games are going in the negative direction.
Right.
The 3-6 matchup in the NFC will be on Sunday, 3:30 Central Time over on Fox. That is the Minnesota Vikings at 13-4 hosting the New York Football Giants at 9-7-1. The Vikings are a 3-point favorite in this one. Over under is 48. The Vikings are 11-0 in one-score games, 2-4 in the rest of the games with a differential of negative 73 points. So when they win, it's close. But when they lose, boy, do they lose. They get run out of the building. These two played a few weeks ago, too. So it's going to be let's hope this game is as good as that one between the two. But what are your thoughts on this matchup?
I think it will be another close game because I don't see the Vikings blowing the Giants out. And the Giants are another team where I'm just like, how are they in the playoffs exactly? Like Daniel Jones and like my cousin and wide receiver. It's just like other than Saquon Barkley, they have nothing on offense. And the defense is very aggressive and blitz heavy, but they're 29th in DVOA. Like, this is not a good defensive unit. So if Brian Dable doesn't win Coach of the Year, we riot because this guy has literally turned a terrible roster into a playoff team. I don't think the Giants defense will be able to contain Justin Jefferson in the passing game. I think this is going to be a very sexy upset pick for people, which I get because the Vikings have just been so ripe for a letdown game and just to get knocked out. But I don't think it happens this week. I think they may get exposed the following week should they play San Francisco. But yeah, I see the Vikings squeaking away in a close one. I just think they have more talent, and I'm not backing Daniel Jones to win a playoff game. He threw for, I think, like 3,200 yards this year, which is really hard to do when you've played a full season. He's just so limited, and I think the Vikings will sell out to stop Saquon and just make enough big plays with Jefferson in the passing game to get it done.
The only thing the Vikings need to worry, like I said, this is this is the second matchup of the day. Like I said, 3:30, 4:30 Eastern time. So this will lead into prime time.
Yeah,
so late in the game, will primetime Kirk Cousins make an appearance? And he's 1-3 in the playoffs in his career, but this is the first time he will be at home in a Vikings home playoff game. So that's important too. Yeah. I just want to throw it out there. Kirk Cousins, primetime Cousins could show up late in the game.
Next week, I think he gets exposed.
Yeah, I do too as well. Just this big games, he just it's just wild how this team. It is impressive though, being 11-0 in one-score games. I mean, this is the NFL where those things can a lot of times it's whoever gets the ball last.
Yep.
And they have figured out ways to win these games late. So, that is impressive.
I think they went like 1-9 or something in one-score games last year. So it's just amazing how that pendulum kind of comes back and it all evens out.
Yeah. So, and we both got the Vikings here.
Yes.
So the last game, which I get why ESPN, this is a good primetime Monday Night Football matchup. The 12-4 Dallas Cowboys, the 5 seed, playing at the 89 Tom Brady led 4-seeded Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Like I said, Monday Night Football, ESPN or ABC. I think it's on ABC too as well, simulcast, I think. And I'm sure the Manning brothers are going to be doing their deal as well. Dallas is a 2.5-point favorite. I'm going to stick by a rule, Matt. I have always believed I will not pick against Tom Brady in a playoff game. I'm not doing it here. I'm just going to let everybody know I'm going to pick the Buccaneers to win. But I will say this: Michael Parsons could be big. But we know if this thing's close. I mean, the Buccaneers have been bad this year. They're not good. But if you're going to beat them, you better put your foot on their throat and end it in the first 3 quarters. Because if it's close, Tom Brady's going to find a way to win it. I think that's what's going to happen on Monday night. I think Tom Brady engineers a game-winning drive in the final minute to beat the Dallas Cowboys due to another Dak Prescott interception.
Oh, man. Oh, boy. Would the city of Dallas and the entire state of Texas just riot if that were to happen? I agree. I was kind of dreading this matchup because I don't respect either head coach, like Todd Bowles, who clearly is just he's great defensive coordinator, but just over his head as a head coach, versus Mike McCarthy, who's just a terrible situational coach. And, say what you want about the Commanders game last week, but you're playing all your starters. You still had an outside chance at the 1 seed, and you looked just terrible. You looked unprepared, and maybe that was by design. They were running vanilla offense, and okay, fine, but they just looked awful. And maybe I need to let that go and not keep the last thing I saw in the back of my head. But we've seen this so many times with the Cowboys in the playoffs. They don't rise to the occasion. And I think Chris Godwin in particular is going to be a problem for them out of the slot. The Dallas defense still ranks very highly in terms of all the key metrics. They're second in DVOA, but the secondary has kind of fallen off a little bit. They're still a little too turnover dependent for me, and you're just not going to get those takeaways against Tom Brady. Now, granted, the Buccaneers have sort of been that stumbling, bumbling team this year where they just find ways to screw up. It just seems like anything that could go wrong can. But I will trust Brady. I will trust that he will be getting the ball out quickly against this fearsome pass rush. And I still think, even though the Bucs defense is not at the level it has been the last several years, I think it's still good enough to get enough stops. They're healthier in the secondary. Their front seven still has a lot of talent. I think they're going to make life difficult for Dak, and I don't think the running game's going to get much going. So I like the Bucs, but you know what? At least we'll cap off Super Wildcard weekend with a good game, because I think we're going to be itching for one after some of the games that will precede it.
Yeah, I think these two will struggle enough on offense, or have been struggling enough offensively lately, that they can't score a lot of points. So it will make it a close game, which should be fun to close it all out. Last week, we were actually about to hit 30 minutes. So after we got done with all that, I did say I had a quick New York Jets question for you. So watching the Jets this season, you can tell this is a team, they are headed in a better direction where they had been. Mm-hmm. They've got pieces there. They've got a young group. I'll be really intrigued with Breece Hall when he comes back next year at running back, how much of a jolt, what he do when he has a full season. But obviously, quarterback is an issue. So my question to you is this: do you ride with Mike White next year? I don't think there's any way you have to move on from Zach Wilson. Or do you think they should make a move, either free agency or draft a quarterback?
Yeah, it's such a layered decision. I think Mike White is like he's a really quality backup. I think he could be the next like Chase Daniel, where his value goes up the less he plays, because it's just like he's had enough good showings with the Jets where it's like, oh, he's a great quality backup, just the guy you want in case your starter goes down. But I think his ceiling is really limited. And again, it's like you go from watching Zach Wilson, who makes like every routine throw look insanely difficult, and then you put him in and he's like making these very routine throws, and it kind of elevates his stock in your mind because he's making the routine look routine, which is what competent quarterbacks should do. So but I don't think the Jets were going to the playoffs with him under center. I think the pie in the sky, as we were kind of talking off air, is making a move for Rodgers, but I just don't think that's going to work out financially. So that I'm ruling that out. But I feel like a Jimmy G, not the biggest fan of a Jimmy G or a Derek Carr, but at least they're known commodities and they're competent, and they're good enough to get you to the playoffs. I don't know if their ceilings are quite high enough to make a Super Bowl run, but I think that's the direction the Jets go, because I don't think the trade market's going to be very robust, and I can't see them doing this whole start over cycle with a rookie quarterback because the defense is built to win now. They've got the young skilled playmakers that they can't waste in their prime of their careers. So I think they will just go with the Garoppolo or Derek Carr route.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting offseason from quarterback standpoint because we do have some good quarterbacks coming out into the draft. And then I feel like we're going to see some movement with some veterans and some quarterbacks too as well. So it's going to be interesting, the Jets and among other teams, because we'll see what decisions they do make. And Matt, this was a good decision to have you on to this week's edition of the show to preview the NFL Super Wildcard Weekend. But if listeners and viewers want to check you out online, where can they find you and all the work you're doing?
Yes, if you want to check me out online, you can follow me on Twitter at Real Matt Barbato. I try to be better about posting all my articles on there from Fantasy Pros and Betting Pros. Those are the publications I work with. So fantasy football season's kind of winding down, so I'm not doing as much work there. But we are doing a little bit of look-ahead stuff to next year, if you can believe it. If you want to start thinking about the 2023 fantasy football season, you can at Fantasy Pros. But I'm also going to be doing a bunch of sports betting stuff for the NFL playoffs at bettingpros.com. So some more current and recent stuff you can find there. So, yeah, it should be an exciting playoff race. I think once we weed this weekend out, I think this is what it's going to be. It's not super wild card weekend. It's weed out wild card weekend because I think you just got to kill off some of these teams like the Giants or, like the Ravens and like I'm trying to think the Seahawks, like just the Dolphins, just the teams that got there but are not in that cut above. And you know what? That's okay. I'd rather we get the Chiefs, the Bills, the Bengals all still hanging around come divisional round than have some like random surprise team make a run. The NFC, maybe that's more plausible, but AFC, I'd rather see those three big dogs in it.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I like how you word that. Not super wild card, super weed out.
I got to use that somewhere. I got to try and work that. That's the first time I used that, so that's I like it.
That's a good one. That's a good one. But anyways, Matt, appreciate the time and look forward to doing it again sometime down the road.
You know where to find me, Phillip. Anytime. Happy to do it with you. Thank you again for having me.
All right. Once again, thanks to Bill Bender and Matt Barbato for coming on this edition of the show. Of course, the show will be back on this coming Monday, Solo Mondays. So we'll be dropping another pod. Probably going to do my way too early college football top 10 for next season. Talk about some other college football headlines. There were some quarterback news that came out last couple of days, but I'm going to save some of that stuff for Monday. And also, I may just give my thoughts on Wildcard Weekend as well. And before we get out of here, with it being NFL playoffs starting this weekend, I will give you my Super Bowl pick. I believe it will be the Buffalo Bills defeating the San Francisco 49ers for Super Bowl title. So I just want to throw that out there real quickly. And that's going to do it for the show. I hope everybody has a great week. Appreciate you guys taking out the time, whether you're listening to it or you're checking it out over on YouTube. Remember, you can follow me on social media at PJordanSEC. Follow all my written work over at Last Word on College Football. You can check out the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. If you're on Apple Podcasts, please follow, rate, and review. Leave a review. I will read it on a future edition of the show. Remember, you can check out the show over on YouTube at the Phillip Jordan Show YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button, hit the bell for all notifications, and please leave a comment on the video, and I'll read it on a future edition of the show. Appreciate it if you would share the show out with all your family and friends. Let them know I should be checking out the Phillip Jordan Show podcast. And remember, you can always email me at sports.phillipjordan@gmail.com. Hope everybody has a great weekend. I will talk to you on Monday, and let kindness be your compass. And you've been listening and watching the Phillip Jordan Show.